Tonight, this is some kind of gold mine if you're the local kitty litter king. But first, the magic of the Maurice could render this region officially wild and scenic.
I wish they'd do it.
What's wrong with that?
But we're already overregulated.
I'm Gary Papa with Wild and Scenic New Jersey, tonight on Primetime.
It's the prime time of my life, doing what I always dreamed I'd do, feeling free and being me in the prime time of my life.
Here in New Jersey, how could it be that this, the most densely populated state in the nation, with its record numbers of radioactive and toxic chemical waste sites, how could it be that a river in New Jersey, the Maurice, has won the nation's highest prize for purity?
1% of the nation's rivers were found to be eligible for the National Rivers Inventory, and this river system is one of those.
It flows through Cumberland County in southern New Jersey. Becoming eligible for the inventory is a necessary first step towards ultimately achieving strong federal protection. As we'll discover, many local residents believe that such protection is their only hope of not losing this river that they love.
I've heard the giant owls and watched the eagle soar and drank pure water from the springs along the shore.
We have something special here and we want to keep it that way.
This is for our future. If we don't have this, we're not going to have anything for our kids.
We need ultimate protection against over-industrialization and abuse, anything that would destroy what is.
That has led to a pioneering mission of preservation and hope for a miracle.
We're hoping a miracle with a lot of hard work.
Their success could mean not only survival for this oasis, but the rescue of others throughout the nation.
I think that if we can bring this off properly, we'll have set a model for the way it can be and should be done in the future.
The Maurice, its problems and its possibilities all depend on where it is. It starts here in Willow Grove, New Jersey. Thanks to a dam, the Maurice becomes at Millville, the state's largest man-made lake. Below Millville and feeding into the Maurice is the Menantico Creek. In the million-acre South Jersey pinelands, the Menantico is one of only two streams whose water quality is pristine. And that means pristine memories for Berwyn Kirby, who has lived along these banks all his life.
The ducks used to just literally block out the sun on some occasions those days. That's back in the 50s, early 50, 51, 52.
But those days were finished. Once Route 55 moved south and crossed over the Menantico.
This is Route 55 here. This is the double-edged sword of the community. It was needed from the politician's standpoint and the businessman's standpoint.
But from the standpoint of river resident Jane Galetto, it makes it all too easy to get here from there.
Of course, threatens to change our lifestyle forever by bringing people from all over, which now can commute easily to the Camden County area and Philadelphia.
In fact, less than an hour's drive from Philadelphia and just a few minutes commute from Vineland. This road and this river, they fundamentally shape the character of the Maurice River Township, according to its mayor, John Feltis.
Basically, we are a bedroom community. We are a community of people who put in their 40 hours a work week, want to enjoy the river, want to enjoy the boating, want to enjoy the fishing.
Fish are also being caught by ospreys like this on another major tributary, the Manyumuskin, that enters the Maurice at Port Elizabeth. The Manyumuskin's 12 miles meander mostly through forest lands with less than 100 people per square mile. In its watershed, there are no sewage treatment plants, landfills, or industrial discharge. From this point, we're traveling on a working river. Near the river's end, the once booming oystering town of Shellpile. And then Bivalve. It's hard to believe that in the early part of this century, Bivalve was one of the oyster capitals of the world, with hundreds of schooners bound for the bay. Memories of a bygone era and the end of the Maurice as it empties into the Delaware Bay, which takes us back to the question that started us on our journey. Will modern pressures spell the end of the Maurice as we've just seen it? Next on Primetime. That we've just seen of the magic of the Maurice, the most significant right now is the section extending from Millville to Shellpile and those tributaries, the Menantico and the Manyumuskin. They're the watershed that's eligible for the National Rivers Inventory, but their inclusion came about only because of a massacre. Planning Board Chairman of the Maurice River Township, Leslie Ficcaglia, explains.
We had a Valentine's Day massacre on February 14th, 1986, when the Hazardous Waste Siting Commission designated this site in Maurice River Township as one of 5 potential sites for a hazardous waste entombment facility.
A friend of mine called me up on the phone and told me, and I just thought it was ridiculous. I didn't really take him seriously.
When she did, Jane Galetto started calling the neighbors.
Pretty soon, we had a pretty large group of people in the county that were ready to put their nose down to the grindstone and document the special nature of this area.
And we just snowed them with facts.
Facts such as the proposed site being a breeding ground for the endangered osprey. Things that cannot tolerate what man has dumped into the water and the air, tolerate the air and the water here.
This is a globally endangered species of plant that exists in only 5 known stands in the world.
Signs of life seen nowhere else. 32 rare plants, 15 endangered species of birds. The facts were all documented and sent to the commissioners in Trenton.
It was really the documentation that led to us being what they called delisted as a site.
Delisted, but hardly out of danger.
The next thing coming down the pike possibly is a low-level radioactive storage facility.
Township residents now realize that they could run, but not hide from the state.
We can zone all we want, we can protect our property all we want, and we can have the most environmentally aware and sensitive zoning ordinances in the world. But if we can't get the state and federal government to buy into it, we're stuck, because they can come in and place anything they want to here, and they can override our municipal land use laws.
They are a South Jersey township with a lot of beauty, but few votes. North Jersey, that generates most of the toxic and radioactive waste, has the greatest political clout. And with that comes the power to use Maurice Township as its dumping ground.
They could override a local government. So you need a major force behind this thing, and this is what this protection gives us.
That is permanent federal protection for the 42 miles of the township's waterways that are already eligible for the National Rivers Inventory, which would then lead to their all-important designation as wild and scenic rivers.
So that if something comes along, such as a low-level radioactive waste site, the National Park Service would have the right and the obligation to review the plans and see whether or not they had the potential to have an impact on the resource values.
The practical result is that the radioactive waste sites simply don't get built on rivers that are designated wild and scenic. But historically, that designation has also kept out developers, buildings, and businesses. Why? Because the 72 rivers that are currently protected flow mostly through state and federally owned wilderness. But the Maurice, as we have seen, flows through communities that, for the first time ever, are going to have a voice in the design of their federal river protection.
And it's all controlled by the people in Maurice River Township, Commercial Township, Millville. They all write in their own concerns as to what they want into this management plan. Once all the plans are put together from each one of the municipalities, then it all comes into one plan. And then the Park Service looks at this and they decide whether they want us or they don't want us.
But putting the plan together could be difficult because river people like marina owner Frank Wheaton of Morristown are by nature independent.
I'm afraid of more regulation, regulation that I and many others cease to understand anymore.
Nobody feels more hogtied by state and federal regulations than New Jersey fishermen like Jack King of Shellpile. Scenic designation, what will it do to business?
Give us the answer, what we can do and what we can't do. Spell it out, write it out, so we can see it. Now, the Park Service has already turned down one dock on the river. What impact is going to have it here on our community if we want to go up the river a little ways and unload boats, build docks or something?
But what happens if the neighbors upriver don't want any more building? For example, twin sisters Jeanette and Janice Burcham. Their family farm has overlooked the Maurice since 1869, and they want it to stay the way it is.
Certainly do. That's why we bust our, you know what, trying to keep it that way. I certainly hope the powers that be have enough sense to realize that we cannot withstand overdevelopment.
Artist Pat Witt, who was born and raised around the river's bend, would also like to see the view remain the same.
Being born on or along the Maurice River and growing up there, you saw all that beauty, you were surrounded by the beauty, and you just want it to last forever.
That wish is the intent of the proposed scenic river designation. And now it's up to the artists, the farmers, fishermen, and businessmen, and those ever-growing numbers of bedroom commuters to try and agree on how much each is willing to surrender in order to keep this river running free.
This is the first time they tried to put a wild and scenic river in where it's been populated, where it's commercialized. So we got some problems.
We have to cooperate because the river doesn't care about boundaries.